Eric McElwain, ACC Network, Clemson legend, hanging out with us on the Heaster Automotive Group hotline. Or should I call you Tyler in Spartanburg?
No, definitely not that. Never that guy.
Are you sure it wasn't planted? Did Dabo hit you up and like, hey man, I got this fire take on fans?
Could you imagine if it like sounded like me or sounded like somebody else? You're like, oh, that's Eric. Are you kidding us, Tyler? No, man, that was wild. Actually, what's crazy is that they let him ask that question.
That was the thing, that made people
bump that dude out. You got to cut him off. Dabo was probably like holding his finger up. He's like, "Do not do it. Let him finish. Because I'm about to just scorch the earth right here."
I feel though, and Lauren and I talked about this earlier. Between Dabo, Mac Brown on Monday, and Dave Doran using Steve Smith really as a jumping off point.
Yeah.
Gilio and I talked about this on Monday.
For sure.
His beef wasn't with Steve Smith, man.
It's with fans, but he can't keep taking it out on the fans.
So he took it out on Steve Smith.
I understand.
All these three coaches have what every coach goes through. It's like, I've built something. We've had good things here. Yet the pressures of football occasionally bleed out into the public, and you see these coaches, real for. I don't mind it, but I also understand why fans at all different places feel this way. So let's talk specifically about Clemson, and let's strip away the silliness of Dabo talking about how we're a couple plays away from 7-0 and all this other stuff. Do you think it's a good thing that Clemson's actually going through this right now? Because it'll force Dabo to actually look in the mirror and make some legit changes.
Will it?
That's what I said.
That's why I'm asking you.
I think whatever, it's going to be very fascinating either way. And I think too, man, it's such an interesting thing because I go back and forth on it a bunch. What should be done, and there's different ways to say it, and obviously to attack a man's character, faith, and poke and pry. I mean, that was a weird way to go about it. I think he could have asked the question, his finances. I mean, what he's worth. Like first of all, he's worth way more. Like, let's be real. And Joe, you and I talked about that. I couldn't remember if it was this past ACC championship,
might have been,
or 2 years ago. But you and I were talking about, because people were getting mad at him then, and I'm like, listen, before this guy got here, you were nothing. You have a blip. You were a blip on the historical plane of college football. 3, I think, 10-win seasons before. When I was there, that's what we did. That's just what we do, and still to this day. And obviously they won't do it this year, but it was just a regular. So he deserves more money. And think of it's so funny. I call it Dabonomics because it's a real thing. Think of the application rate. Think of the way the university has grown. Right. And our leadership has 1,000% leaned into that. President's board, AD, and grown because of that. And they understand, listen, the house is the school, right? The university is the house, but the front porch that everybody sees is athletics, is football. And they understand that thing is shiny and pretty, and that'll open up a lot of doors. So I think when you attack a man or a woman in that way and come after all those things that he said, what do you expect? That you're going to get the horns, man. You're going to get the fire. And as you brought up there, it's so much pressure. And this has probably been building for 2.5 years. I mean, as soon as he doesn't make a playoff, he's the worst guy ever, and get rid of him. And now it's this buildup to where it just all exploded. So I like the human element of it. Yeah. I think there's something to that. And again, I think the questions that were trying to be asked without, being attacking were valid, but it's just the way it happened. And he got the result that we all saw.
Listen, once he said Tommy Bowden, that's when Dabo held the finger up. Like, no, I'm gonna let him finish. And he was ready. He was ready.
Exactly.
Like that's incredibly unfair, obviously, right. and obviously that would be something that would upset him a lot to have that comparison.
Absolutely. And I honestly, again, y'all know how strong in his faith he is. When he said, "I don't know if you've read this passage of scripture," but he's totally making fun of him. I mean, it was bizarre. It was just a silly way to do it. And so because of all those things, it's just, you get what you get, man.
All right. But let's get back to my central question.
Yes, please. I'm sorry. That was a long-winded.
No, but that's important. But that's important in context to Dabo has the right to feel a particular way about the program that he has built and has been successful.
Absolutely.
But once you get to that level, the expectations then adjust to what you should be. Alabama deals with this with Nick Saban. Georgia obviously deals with this with Kirby Smart going forward. So my curiosity is, as stubborn as Dabo has been about changing with the times. You can't sit here and watch this Clemson team and not think, man, if you had just played the game, if you had modernized to go get yourself a player out of the portal like so many other schools do, and we're not talking wholesale roster changes like a Deion. It's more of like the Mike Elko approach at Duke. He said, look, people act like we weren't active in the portal. We were.
Right.
We identified our needs. We went and got them.
Yeah.
And that's how we make our team better. I don't think it's that hard of an ask for Dabo, is it?
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think the interesting thing too is just how competitive of a guy he is. I would think that he would want to dominate that facet too, and want to prove that his culture is strong enough that they can bring anybody in and adapt to that quickly. So I don't know the hesitation with it. And I think, like, I asked him this year, quite blank period about it. And, what he told me is just that there was no room. We had too many guys come back that we thought were leaving. Our recruiting class was too big and too many guys came back, and we had to make it work. We had to make it work to get Ruka Rororo to come back. Right. You know what I'm saying? I think they're taking that guy over any other transfer portal. So Joe, Lauren, whether that's an excuse or whether that's the truth, that was the matter of the fact this year. And I think I've said this a couple of times, and I don't know what every other coach does. I've only been with this one, right? He's the only, experience I have playing for was this guy. But his greatest strength right now can also be a greatest weakness because he's not kicking anybody out just because they're not playing to the level. When you look at Georgia, you look at Alabama, you look at the other schools, and guys move on that you're like, oh, that's weird. I'm guaranteeing you they were told, you're never going to play here. Go find somewhere else. Coach Swinney will never do that unless you break a rule, unless you abide and do weird things and, whatever in class. He's not kicking guys off. And so that, again, kind of takes up the room of guys not coming in. Now, if you want to say, hey, here's your recruiting number, it's 18. Why don't you take 3 of those and hold them for the transfer portal? That makes sense. And that's something that I think could be very viable. So it'll be interesting. I think this year, you're right. You add an offensive lineman here or there. You add a defensive end. You even add a quarterback.
Get yourself a Keon Coleman. Get a Keon Coleman.
That'd be nice. Hey, bro, I'd love that. Hey, maybe a Concepcion. You know what I'm saying? Maybe whatever it takes. But yeah, you're absolutely right.
That because NC State fans are so pressed right now that they see man, we got this. We've been wondering where the wide receiver is, and they're already freaked out about KC. But that's the game. That's the game.
I'm joking. I hope he's not.
But
it is the game.
We're gonna know that when it happens, we know that we're gonna call him the Eric McLean wide receiver.
Whatever it takes. Whatever it takes.
NIL money. Your Ingles NIL money is the reason why.
Yeah, you see it right here. We're saving up, man. We're saving up.
It's all about that podcast hustle, man.
That's right.
All right. Speaking of Florida State, I like to get away from Clemson. I was hesitant to call them the class of the ACC because before the wheels fell off at North Carolina the last 2 weeks, the way Duke had been playing, I did think to myself, look, Florida State's good, but I do think it's a strong ACC. But based on what I've seen and how they handled Duke's defense and wore them out, and then the way they completely dismantled Wake Forest, a respectable program of
from the jump too. They didn't play with their food this week.
It does look like Florida State's finally kind of in that zone and the class of the ACC. The question is, who's going to play them in Charlotte?
And we have an elimination game this weekend, right? Which is exciting. I think it's Louisville. I think that's been kind of clear, and it just, man, it quite frankly, it pisses me off, the Pittsburgh game, because it's what a waste of an opportunity. It totally is. And it's just like, why? How? What are you doing? Like, it's not hard to play disciplined football, and they just couldn't. And weather, whatever, on the road. Now, Louisville has been a different team on the road. I mean, that's been very evident. The great thing for them is 3 of these last 4 that they play are at home. That's a good thing. Now, they do have to go to Miami. Who knows? We'll see what happens. But I do think it's going to be Louisville. Super complete team when they're hitting, especially when Jawar Jordan is available, which I don't think he was for that Pitt game. So that kind of helps answer that question. They're productive, man. They can do a lot of different things offensively. They really took what Duke gave them, which was not passing the ball. I mean, that passing defense is for real. And they ran it for a career high for Jawar. And I thought the defense was excellent. So, I think we're really going to them continue to grow and expand. Now, Virginia Tech obviously going to be a tough battle this weekend, and the Hokies are figuring it out, which has been bizarre to say the least. But I think I think them, Georgia Tech, Louisville, you can throw in there.
That's who I was going to mention was Georgia Tech.
Yeah. It just shows you how important quarterback play is. And when you get a guy, you're in every game. There's no question.
Yeah, I was going to mention Georgia Tech just because it would be very funny to me. Georgia Tech or Virginia Tech.
Hey, if they're ranked, Georgia Tech under Brad Key's probably going to win.
That's right.
That's
Make them 17, though. It can't be anything but 17.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
Yeah.
And if North Carolina's a double-digit favorite against an ACC team, according to Vegas, they're gonna lose it at that point. Eric McLean, ACC Network, Kramlich and McLean, the podcast. Eric, we appreciate it, man. We'll talk to you later.
No doubt, man. Appreciate you guys.